What started as a smug insult from Congressman Adam Schiff turned into a moment that left the entire room speechless because Karoline Levitt said just one sentence, and it flipped the script completely. Stay with us, because this moment didn't just shut down Schiff, it sent shockwaves through Washington. Karoline Leavitt, a rising star in conservative politics and former White House press assistant, was not expecting to go viral this week. But that's exactly what happened when she went head-to-head with longtime Democrat Congressman Adam Schiff during a heated and highly anticipated panel discussion on Capitol Hill. It was supposed to be a routine political debate, the kind of exchange where seasoned figures like Schiff dominate the room with practiced sound bites and political finesse. But instead, something very different happened, something that would send social media into a frenzy and put Levitt on the map in a major way. From the moment the panel began, the atmosphere was tense. The audience, made up of journalists, aides, and political insiders, knew sparks might fly. Schiff, well known for his role in high-profile investigations and his sharp, often sarcastic, commentary, took the stage with confidence. Levitt, seated across from him, was calm, composed, and focused. She had done her homework, and while she may have been one of the younger figures on the panel, her body language said it all. She was ready for whatever came her way. The conversation turned to media bias, political truth-telling, and the role of the press in shaping public opinion. Schiff, as usual, delivered polished lines about protecting democracy and calling out misinformation. When it was Levitt's turn to speak, she challenged the idea that mainstream media had a monopoly on truth. She argued that many Americans no longer trust the traditional narratives being pushed from Washington, and that younger voices, especially from outside the establishment, were critical in bringing balance to the conversation. That's when Schiff pounced. With a smirk, he interrupted her mid-sentence, waving dismissively and chuckling into the microphone. The room quieted just enough to catch his jab loud and clear. "Oh, come on," he said, grinning. "We don't need cable." News talking points repeated here. This isn't a segment on Fox News. The audience laughed. It was the kind of jab that veteran politicians use to brush off their opponents, the kind meant to discredit without directly debating. Levitt paused. You could see it. That brief moment where most people might shrink back or stumble. But she didn't. Instead, she leaned slightly forward, eyes locked on Schiff's. Her voice was steady, clear, and what she said next changed everything. "Unlike you, Congressman," she said calmly, "I don't need a committee to tell me what the truth is. I just tell it." The room fell dead silent. There was no laugh track this time, no smug comeback. Schiff blinked, his smile fading. For a few seconds, he seemed at a loss for words. The shift in energy was instant and undeniable. What had started as a playful roast from an established politician had just been flipped, completely, by one sentence from someone half his age and twice as fearless. People in the room looked at each other surprised. Some nodded. A few reporters in the back started furiously typing. The moment, barely a few seconds long, had just gone viral in real time. Within minutes, clips of the exchange were being shared online. By the time the panel ended, hashtags like Karoline clapback and a Schiff shutdown were trending on X. Conservative commentators praised her sharp delivery and boldness, calling it a masterclass in owning the moment. Even some who didn't agree with her politically admitted she handled herself better than most veteran politicians could. But it wasn't just about a clever comeback. What made the moment so powerful was what it symbolized. Levitt didn't just defend herself, she struck at something much deeper. The growing disconnect between establishment politicians and the new generation of political thinkers who aren't afraid to speak plainly, call out hypocrisy, and challenge the old guard. Schiff's remark was meant to belittle her, to reduce her arguments to nothing more than partisan fluff. But by pointing out that he hides behind committees and prepared narratives, while she speaks from conviction, Levitt touched a nerve that many Americans feel every day. She spoke not just for herself, but for a generation fed up with political theater and desperate for authenticity. Karoline Levitt may not have had the resume or the decades of experience that Schiff has, but in that moment, she had something far more powerful: the truth and the courage to speak it without a filter. And people noticed. That viral clip didn't just earn her millions of views, it earned her respect. From podcast hosts to political analysts, the message was clear. Karoline Levitt wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was a force to be reckoned with. Since then, Levitt has been invited on several major platforms, speaking about the moment and the message behind it. She's not gloating, she's not making it personal. Instead, she's using the opportunity to highlight how out of touch Washington has become, and how voices like hers, younger, unfiltered, and grounded in everyday American concerns, are reshaping the national conversation. And while Schiff has yet to publicly address the exchange, the silence from his end speaks volumes. The moment clearly struck a chord, not just with viewers, but with the political elite who suddenly realize they might be facing a new kind of opponent, one that doesn't play by the old rules. What happened on that stage was more than a viral video. It was a turning point, a glimpse into the future of American politics. And if Karoline Levitt has anything to say about it, that future is going to look and sound a whole lot different. Because sometimes all it takes is one sentence to change everything. So what did she say? "Unlike you, Congressman, I don't need a committee to tell me what the truth is. I just tell it." That was it. One sentence. Short, direct, and devastating. It didn't sound rehearsed. It wasn't shouted. It didn't even carry the dramatic flair of someone trying to score political points. But in those few words, Karoline Levitt did something that seasoned politicians often fail to do. She pierced right through the noise and said what millions of Americans have been thinking for years. The silence that followed was almost uncomfortable. Just seconds before, the room had been filled with laughter. Schiff had cracked a smug joke at her expense, brushing her off as if she were just another talking head parroting partisan lines. The crowd had reacted predictably, with chuckles, smirks, even a few murmurs of agreement. But when Levitt delivered that line, everything shifted. The laughter stopped. The smirks faded. Schiff, caught completely off guard, didn't offer a retort. He blinked, shifted in his seat, glanced at the moderator, and said nothing. It wasn't just a mic drop. It was a moment of reckoning, because in that one, unassuming sentence, Karoline Levitt laid bare a truth that no committee hearing or press conference could hide, that many in Washington have become so insulated, so wrapped up in processes and procedures and performance, that they've forgotten what honesty sounds like when it comes straight from the gut. She wasn't just responding to Schiff. She was responding to an entire system that thrives on carefully curated narratives, talking points tested by focus groups, and committees designed to delay rather than deliver. In contrast, her response was raw and unrehearsed, and that made it powerful. She wasn't trying to score a win. She was simply speaking her truth, and the internet noticed. Within minutes, clips of that exchange began making the rounds on X, formerly Twitter. Influencers from across the political spectrum began weighing in. Some labeled it a masterclass in staying calm under pressure. Others called it the perfect example of how the younger generation is dismantling the political establishment one sentence at a time. The phrase, "she destroyed Schiff in 10 words," began trending, attached to short, punchy videos with dramatic background music and bold captions, edits with slow-motion playback of the moment, Schiff smirking, Levitt delivering her line. The stunned silence that followed racked up millions of views in hours. On TikTok, creators recreated the moment, lip-syncing her line, adding their own commentary, or simply nodding in agreement as they watched the clip again and again. Instagram Reels flooded with the exchange, with users tagging friends and writing captions like, "Finally, someone said it," and "This is the kind of energy we need more of." What was it that resonated so deeply? It wasn't just the political divide. Though there's no doubt conservative viewers were thrilled to see Schiff put in his place. It wasn't just about Karoline Levitt being young and fresh-faced either, though That contrast with Schiff's long tenure certainly added visual impact. No, the real power behind her sentence was that it felt honest, unfiltered, real. In a political culture where so much is scripted, guarded, and layered in doublespeak, hearing someone speak plainly and fearlessly is rare. And it's not just that she said something gutsy, it's that she said it to Adam Schiff, a lawmaker who has built much of his public persona on being the voice of reason, the keeper of institutional integrity, the man who often gets the final word in tense committee hearings. Schiff is known for his eloquence, his calculated barbs, and his ability to command attention with a single sentence. But this time, it was someone else, someone half his age, and not yet a member of Congress, who stole the show. This wasn't just a generational
clash.
It was a values clash. On one side, the polished performance of someone who's played the Washington game for decades. On the other, the unfiltered challenge of someone tired of that game entirely. Karoline Levitt didn't just score a point. She symbolized a shift, a deepening frustration with the establishment, especially among younger Americans who see Washington not as a place of solutions, but as a place of endless talking, finger-pointing, and carefully timed outrage. And that one sentence summed it up perfectly. I don't need a committee to tell me what the truth is. I just tell it. It's bold. It's brave. And it's exactly what people are starving for right now, a voice that cuts through the nonsense and speaks directly. As the clip continued to spread, even those outside of politics began to notice. Media personalities, podcast hosts, and even apolitical influencers started using the audio in their own content. Some added commentary about generational change. Others used the quote as a meme about honesty in everyday life, applying it to everything from school to the workplace to relationships. The sentence took on a life of its own, and all the while, Karoline Levitt remained remarkably calm amid the storm she had just created. In interviews following the exchange, she didn't gloat, she didn't declare victory. She simply explained that she was tired of watching lawmakers like Schiff talk down to younger voices, especially those who dared to challenge the prevailing narrative. She wasn't trying to go viral. She was just trying to speak up. But going viral is exactly what happened, and for good reason. Because in politics, there are moments that are planned and staged to get attention, and then there are moments that happen naturally, authentically, and hit like a thunderclap. This was the latter. Whether or not people agree with her politics, most agree on one thing. That sentence was a knockout, not because it was rude or outrageous, but because it was true. In a world where truth is often buried under red tape and press releases, hearing someone say they don't need permission to speak it, that they just will, is electric. Karoline Levitt's sentence won't be forgotten any time soon, not by Schiff, not by the political world, and certainly not by the millions of people who watched her stand her ground and speak her mind. No script, no filter, and no apologies. If you're wondering, wait, who exactly is Karoline Leavitt? You're not alone. Up until recently, she was a name known mostly within conservative circles and among political insiders. But after a single, sharp moment on Capitol Hill that sent shockwaves across social media and cable news, Karoline Levitt became a household name. And make no mistake, this is only the beginning. Karoline Levitt didn't come from one of the traditional power corridors of American politics. She's not the product of a political dynasty, and she didn't work her way up through decades of party machinery. She's part of a new generation that isn't interested in playing by the old rules. What she brings to the table is something different. Raw authenticity, bold convictions, and the confidence to speak her mind, even when the room is stacked against her. Before her recent rise in public attention, Levitt served in the Trump White House as an assistant press secretary, a high-pressure role that thrust her into the chaotic heart of Washington media and politics. She wasn't just sitting in the background. She was part of the communications front line during some of the most controversial and scrutinized moments in recent history. It was in that high-stakes environment that she honed her skills, learned how to stay calm under fire, and developed her ability to deliver a message that cuts through the noise. But even before that, there were signs of the firebrand she would become. Raised in New Hampshire, Levitt wasn't shy about voicing her views, challenging the status quo, or questioning media narratives. She had the drive, the discipline, and the vision, and she wasn't afraid to use them. In 2022, she made headlines by launching her own congressional campaign, not as a footnote or a symbolic run, but as a serious contender. At just 25 years old, she became the youngest GOP candidate for Congress in the entire country. The media had their doubts. Some dismissed her campaign as overly ambitious, even naive. But her supporters saw something different. Someone with the guts to step into the arena, unafraid to go toe-to-toe with career politicians who'd spent more years in office than she'd spent on Earth. Though she didn't win the race, she left a lasting impact. Her campaign earned national coverage. She built a loyal base, and she proved she wasn't going anywhere. In fact, that run only strengthened her public voice, opening the door to a new chapter. Not as a candidate, but as a conservative commentator, strategist, and rising political figure. Levitt quickly became a familiar face on television and social media. She brought a fresh, fearless energy to political debates, often standing out not just because of her youth, but because of her clarity. She doesn't talk like someone trying to please a committee. She talks like someone who believes what she says, and says it plainly. That quality, increasingly rare in modern politics, is exactly why her voice began to resonate beyond just Republican circles. She's not afraid to challenge legacy media. She calls out what she sees as bias and dishonesty in journalism. She's willing to confront Democratic figures without pulling punches. And she's equally unafraid of challenging members of her own party when she feels they're losing touch with their base. In short, Karoline Levitt is not a mouthpiece. She's a disruptor. All of that came to a head recently when she sat across from Congressman Adam Schiff during a tense political panel. Schiff, with decades of experience and a reputation for sharp rhetoric, clearly believed he could take control of the room with a smirk and a snide remark. When he mocked Levitt's comments as talking points from a cable news script, it looked for a brief moment like the kind of exchange we've seen 100 times before. An older politician brushing off a younger opponent with a dismissive laugh and the weight of establishment confidence. But what happened next changed everything. Leavitt didn't stammer. She didn't take offense. She didn't try to play the victim. She leaned forward, met Schiff's gaze, and in one quiet, cutting line, changed the tone of the entire room. "Unlike you, Congressman," she said, "I don't need a committee to tell me what the truth is. I just tell it." The silence that followed wasn't just awkward. It was seismic. Schiff, usually quick with a rebuttal, was visibly caught off guard. The audience, moments earlier entertained by his jab, suddenly felt the air shift. And on the internet, that moment exploded. The clip of Levitt's remark began spreading like wildfire, picked up by major accounts, media personalities, and everyday users who saw in her words something rare: courage, clarity, and an unflinching refusal to back down. That one sentence wasn't just a comeback. It was a declaration. Levitt wasn't there to play defense. She was done waiting for permission to speak. She was going on the offensive, and in doing so, she exposed what so many Americans have been feeling: a deep frustration with the political elite who seem more concerned with committees and narratives than with straight, honest talk. Now, Karoline Levitt isn't just known. She's being watched closely. Supporters see her as the real deal, a potential future leader in the conservative movement. Critics are scrambling to find ways to dismiss her without acknowledging the growing wave of attention she's commanding. And political commentators are beginning to ask serious questions about how long the old political playbook can hold up in the face of voices like hers. What makes Levitt different isn't just her ability to go viral. It's her substance. She's not chasing fame. She's delivering a message. She represents a generation that's done with political correctness and tired of the endless spin. She believes in accountability, in calling out hypocrisy, and in restoring a kind of honesty to politics that many have written off as long gone. Whether or not you agree with her views, there's no denying what Karoline Levitt represents: a bold, unapologetic future for conservative politics, led by voices unafraid to challenge the establishment on either side of the aisle. She's not just speaking up, she's breaking through. And as that unforgettable moment with Schiff showed, the world, Karoline Levitt, is not here to wait her turn. She's here to lead. You might be thinking, okay, it was a good comeback, but why is this such a big deal? Why did that one sentence from Karoline Levitt cause such a stir, not just on social media, but across the broader political landscape? The answer lies in more than just the words themselves. It's about timing, it's about symbolism, and it's about a growing movement that's pushing back, hard, against the established way of doing things in Washington. In today's world, politics isn't just about policy papers, legislation, or committee hearings. It's about moments, optics, the ability to connect instantly with millions of people who are watching not from the Capitol gallery, but from their phones. The political battlefield has shifted from congressional chambers to Twitter feeds, from news headlines to TikTok videos. One sentence, if delivered with the right conviction, in the right setting, at the right time, can create a ripple effect that changes the trajectory of careers, campaigns, and even public perception. Karoline Levitt didn't just score a rhetorical point, she landed a cultural one. For years, Adam Schiff has been one of the most recognizable and vocal figures in Congress. During the Trump-Russia investigations, he became a regular fixture on cable news, speaking with the certainty of someone who believed he was on the right side of history. During the January 6th hearings, he leaned even further into the image of a gatekeeper of truth, a protector of democracy. Whether you admired him or distrusted him, there's no denying Schiff cultivated an aura of moral authority. But what happens when someone refuses to buy into that image? What happens when a younger, sharper voice looks directly at that moral stagecraft and says, "We're not impressed"? That's what made Karoline's moment so powerful. It wasn't just that she had a clever line. It was that she dismantled, in just a few words, an entire performance. The kind of Washington theater that so many Americans are tired of watching. And she did it without raising her voice, without losing her cool, and without the safety net of establishment support. She didn't need a panel of pundits to validate her. She didn't look for permission to speak. She simply said the thing no one else in the room would. Unlike you, Congressman, I don't need a committee to tell me what the truth is. I just tell it. That sentence struck a nerve because it wasn't just about Schiff. It was about every politician who's spent years talking down to the American people, pretending that the process is more important than the principle. That image is more important than integrity. Levitt wasn't debating policy. She was challenging a mindset. She was calling out the scripted nature of DC discourse and offering something raw, unfiltered, and real in return. In doing so, she became a symbol of something bigger than herself. There's a shift happening in American politics, and it's impossible to ignore. A younger generation is rising, not with soft hands and cautious talking points, but with fire. They're not waiting for a seat at the table. They're flipping the table over and building their own. They're tired of being told to be patient, tired of watching politicians dodge questions, spin facts, and avoid accountability. And perhaps most importantly, they're no longer afraid to say what they think, even if it ruffles feathers, even if it breaks tradition, even if it makes people uncomfortable. That's what Karoline Levitt represents. Not just a fresh face in politics, but a change in tone, in tactics, and in courage. In that brief but blistering exchange with Schiff, she voiced something millions have felt for a long time: the deep frustration with elites who speak in circles while pretending to speak the truth. And that's why the moment matters. Because moments like these are the new currency of political capital. When Levitt's line started trending online, it didn't just generate clicks. It energized people. It validated those who feel unheard. It showed that truth-telling, even in its simplest form, still has the power to cut through noise. It also served as a warning shot to the political class. The old way of doing business is on its way out. Gone are the days when carefully managed optics and polished messaging could shield politicians from accountability. This new era rewards authenticity even if it's uncomfortable. It values courage over caution, clarity over jargon, and realness over rehearsed lines. And let's not forget, this didn't come from a party veteran or a seasoned senator. It came from someone many in Washington still consider an outsider, someone they underestimated. And that only adds to the weight of the moment. Karoline Levitt didn't need to win an election to make her mark. She didn't need to hold a title to make her voice heard. All it took was one sentence, spoken with conviction, aimed directly at the heart of political arrogance, to shift the conversation. That moment didn't just belong to her. It belonged to every young person who's ever felt like their voice didn't matter. It belonged to every voter who's grown cynical watching political theater masquerade as governance. It belonged to everyone who's been waiting for someone, anyone, to stop playing the game and start telling the truth. So yes, it was just one sentence. But it was also a line in the sand, a signal, a spark. And if you felt something when you heard it, even just for a second, that's because it wasn't just political commentary. It was defiance. It was clarity. It was the sound of change knocking on the doors of power, and judging by the reaction, those doors might not stay shut for long. The fallout and what's next. Since the incident, Levitt has been trending across social media. Conservative outlets are praising her for her courage and clarity. Even some moderate voices are admitting she held her ground, and then some. As for Adam Schiff, he hasn't directly addressed the moment, but insiders say his team didn't expect that kind of viral blowback, and it's raising new questions about how out of touch some longtime politicians have become. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt is seizing the momentum. She's appearing on podcasts, news segments, and rallies, and her message is consistent. The truth doesn't need a filter, and it doesn't need permission. It's clear she's not backing down. And after this moment, a lot more people will be listening.